never fake it. My people. It's been a long time coming. I spent a long time running, grinding, and finding it's harder every day. Go deep into the mind of an overthinker, sitting on the brink of something new, made for a chosen few. Man, I'm tired of working for fish and chips. I'm trying to get paid.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to We Are Who Our Ancestors Waiting For. We have another wonderful show lined up with you with Queen Mother Efia from Malcolm X Center of Self-Determination. We hope you enjoy the show, and please remember that the show is unscripted. Hope you enjoy.
Good, thank you. They made it a point when they were capturing us and bringing us, or scattering us across the globe, was to try and to avoid putting large numbers of same ethnic groups together. And in fact, to mix rivaling peoples together in order to keep them at each other's throat. Even though the Willie Lynch letter that was so popular around the Million Man March is deemed to have been a mythological fabrication, it is still accurate. And the letter talks about how to psychologically manage enslaved persons by keeping the old against the young and the light against the dark, the house against the field. And so in the process of colonization as well as enslavement, we were all taught that whatever our basic identities were never as good as a white or Euro-American identity. So that it created not only self-hatred, but it created the convenient vacuum that made us susceptible to manipulation and hostility one towards the other. I remember the Biafran War and how bitter that was. And a significant part of it had to do with the manipulation of the people of what we call Nigeria for the benefit of British Petroleum. I remember Ken Sawowiwa, who was an environmentalist way before environmental racism was coined and environmental justice became a movement, who was murdered in Nigeria for challenging Shell oil, for the destruction and depopulation of the lands. And I don't remember the exact part of Nigeria that he was from, but that he challenged them and they killed him. So, and they look at Malcolm. that Malcolm could be murdered by another African for the benefit of Euro-America and capitalism. We talk about democracy. We use the term democracy, but we've made a mistake in getting sucked into this phony confluence of democracy and capitalism, that democracy is presented as the same as capitalism. Capitalism is an economic system. Democracy is a political system. And so when we hear the word democracy, we don't understand, not just Black people, but people in this country specifically don't understand that the captains of industry are talking about capitalism. They're talking about one thing and we're talking about something else. We're talking about politics. We don't even know what capitalism is, or God forbid, socialism or communism is. All three of which are economic systems, which may have political aspects to them, but in their purest sense are economics. Democracy has to do with the management of capitalism, socialism, communism, and whether it's going to be an equitable or an exploitive system. And of course, the less informed, the more misinformed, misdirected the general populace is, then the more desirable it is for capitalists. In this election cycle, we look at the so-called choices between the Democrats and the Republicans, Tweedledum and Tweedledee.
Yeah.
6 on one hand and half dozen on the other. Or as Malcolm put it, U.S. democracy is nothing but hypocrisy. And I would add to that the difference between the Democrats and the Republicans is simply one of style. In the end, the masses of the people generally, and Black people in particular, do not benefit one way or the other. In fact, studies have been done to assess the impact of the two parties on us, on Black people, and whether or not, and to what extent there's been a positive or negative, net negative or positive change in our condition. And the fact of the matter is no, it hasn't been. We continue to be used and allow ourselves to be used, as my father would say, as a cat's paw. And the story of the cat's paw is that someone had some chestnuts roasting on a fire, and the monkey reached over to get it and discovered that it was hot. So it realized that it needed an instrument, a tool, to get the chestnuts. So it grabbed the cat and used the cat's paw to rake the chestnuts out of the fire. So it was little or no consequence to itself, with all the benefits of having the chestnuts. And that's the same thing that happens with us, happens with the masses of the people generally in the West, but especially formerly colonized, enslaved, and continue to be oppressed peoples. And our efforts to resist that, as represented at this point with the greatest visibility, is, of course, the Palestinians and their resistance of white supremacy in Al-Aqsa flood, October 7th, and 2023, where they pierce the veil, the military veil of Zionism, and were able to establish their invincibility, that they are human and they can be outsmarted, and but for brute force, they have little else to rely on. They have, of course, the Palestinians, of course, had to pay, and I knew that they would, and I guess all of us knew when we heard about it, knew that they would have a dear price to pay. And they paid dearly for almost 100 years at this point. But the fact of the matter is that they have never allowed themselves to succumb or surrender to oppression. And the truth be told, and hopefully as more and more young people, of our young people, become historians and dig into our history, that our full and complete history of resistance, we have never surrendered and acquiesced to oppression. The number of uprisings and the various forms of uprising and resistance that we have waged since the first African was snatched off of the continent and slammed down in chains in the Western Hemisphere, we have always been engaged in some form of resistance. Yesterday, I went to a vigil in observance of Al-Aqsa flood and those who have been lost, who have been martyred over the past year in Palestine. It was an interesting experience in that it was a silent vigil, which reminded me of the silent march against lynching in this country that the NAACP, Ida B. Wells led and organized to protest the slaughter of African people enslaved at this point under under Jim Crow or apartheid, U.S. apartheid, and the effectiveness of just I don't know, maybe 30 people sitting silently wrapped in keffiyehs in downtown Greenville, South Carolina, where that has become a food destination. You see all these fat, obese people with their obese children and their dogs running from one restaurant to another, who didn't quite know what to make of it, but who were struck by it. And I thought to myself about the power of presence, of visibility, and how sometimes silence speaks more than words. Yeah. One of the young women there was Lebanese, and her family was, the family home was just destroyed in Lebanon, just outside of Beirut. And, you know, she said, when she saw me, the first thing she was saying, well, how are you doing? And my first thought is, how are you doing? How are you all taking all of this so uh, disciplined, so um, really quiet, with the biggest demonstration is still, I keep flashing on the movie, The Battle of Algiers. Or in my lifetime, in this country, the US war on Vietnam, and the number of acts of paramilitary acts of resistance, which didn't and doesn't get a lot of coverage in US history because, of course, they don't want anybody to, as they say, become copycats. But the number of university laboratories that were blown up because of their support of the US military, Dow Chemical Research Lab at University of Wisconsin, that, as the brothers say in the prisons, let's spread some of this pain around, that it's not enough for Joe Biden and Camilla, I call her Cop Miller, to call for, out one side of their mouth, call for a ceasefire, and on the other side, give the order to send Israel 2,000-pound bombs that they know are going to be dropped on residences, on neighborhoods.
They send them funding, billions of dollars. I mean, come on.
The what?
They send them billions of dollars too. They just sent them billions of, that's showing you right there, like, whose side they're on, their intentions and everything.
Well, one of the things that they brag about with regard to the money is that the money, well, yeah, because every year they send them $3 billion a year that is not military,
Yeah.
which means that Israelis are getting free education, free health care, free to minimal cost housing, while we've got over 250,000 people sleeping in streets, under bridges, where the US Supreme Court has just ruled that they can't, that houseless people can't be sleeping in public parks. So it's about time for people in this country to in fact stand up. The Republicans, white supremacists, and it's not just Republicans, but those who bought into the dog whistle with regard to immigrants, claiming that immigrants, apart from the lie of immigrants eating pets, claiming that immigrants are driving up the cost of housing. The level of ignorance in this country with regard to the economy and how it works, with regard to a sense of entitlement. I was so glad to see the ILA go on strike and to demand a reasonable percentage of their overall demand before they would suspend. Was, I thought, again, a strike, a blow for workers in this country. it was interesting to listen to the various call-in shows that were complaining that it was going to cause prices of consumer unnecessary, unneeded, overpriced consumer goods to go up. And I told someone else, they don't have to go up. How about the difference coming out of the profits of the corporations? In one of the news reports, manufactured goods coming into this country for one corporation was generating, and I apologize, I don't recall the name of the corporation, was generating $3 billion before COVID. Now they're up to $63 billion. That's enough profits to raise the wages of the people who create the work. And don't mention the slave labor in U.S. prisons. They want to talk about China uses slave wages. What about U.S. prisoners who are paid 35 cents a day? Not 35 cents an hour, 35 cents a day. And not only that, in some prisons, they don't get paid at all. Like in Georgia, there's no pay at all. And if you do not work, then you can be put into solitary confinement and fed bread and water. And that is considered legal under the 13th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. So, don't tell me about no slave labor in China. Let's deal with the slave labor that's still going on in the United States of America. And as I said to the person with whom I was speaking, we have been conditioned to fight each other, going right back to where we started about intergroup divide and conquer and manipulation. Here we are, the 99% as coming out of the Occupy movement, using that language, the 99% fighting each other over the crumbs, while the real thieves, the captains of industry and capitalism, walk off with the whole bankroll. We need to stop looking horizontally and start looking vertically and claiming what we're entitled to. That there's no reason for Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos and Zuckerberg and whatever his name is, being $230 billion? Why? For what? I don't think so. Not to mention not paying taxes, but they can use the highways. They can use the publicly funded and created internet to create all this wealth. And we still have to pay to be able to use it. And the people in this country pay more to use the internet than in any other country in the world. So folks have to become critical thinkers. They have to become vigilant. They have to understand there's a reason why you got folk running around wanting to ban books. Why you've got, I was looking at part of the debate between used car salesman J.D. Vance and Elmer Fudd, Tim Walls. And Vance is talking about, he's talking straight out of Project 2025, talking about how child care is needed, but you should be able to pay your wife to stay home from work, outside work, with government funds. Now, these are the folks who want less government, right? They want small government, but they want enough government to be able to pay white women to stay home because they can no longer live off of one salary. And at the same time, since they can't live off of one salary and white women go out to work, because black women been going out to work ever since we were brought over here. Now they want to figure out a way to deprive them of the independence that comes or can come from working outside of the house and of being in community with other people, being able to compare circumstances, being able to examine and to raise questions and to learn to be critical thinkers and actors. So in the same way, when they desegregated the schools, they created the teachers' aides in order to make sure that there was a white woman in the room with the black teacher to monitor that teacher's behavior. First, it started out as a volunteer position, but as the economics of it began to change, then they had to get paid. The teacher's aide, that's how the teacher's aide position in the schools came about. So now they have the so-called trad wives, meaning traditional wives, that all these old white women running around with these baby carriages, who have to quit their jobs in order to stay home. I watch them at the public library where I go. You got one on the hip and one in the carriage, trying to build up the number of whites in this country in order to defeat the changing demographic. So now they want those white women that I see at the library to get paid for them little white kids that they be taking to the library, running all over the place, making all kinds of noise, so that the burden of this overpriced housing and the underpaid, overworked, all of us, can be tolerated, and the 1%, the Elon Musk and the Bezos and such, can maintain their positions of privilege, and males can be made to feel like they're in charge of something, so that because they'll be the breadwinners again, right? It's all smoke and mirrors. All smoke and mirrors.
Yeah. Have you seen The Handmaid's Tale?
I have not. I've seen bits and pieces of it. I refuse to. I guess I could probably. I guess it's on the internet, but I don't have that kind of time. But I've seen bits and pieces of it. I have a sense of it. I'll tell you, I grew up in the Pentecostal church, where it was God is the head of the household. The man, no, God is the head of the church. Man is the head of the household. Wives, be ye in subjection to your own husband, and children are to be seen and not heard. Yeah. So I think I probably lived the Handmaid's Tale until I was 18, when I could get from under it and go on to college as far away from home as possible.
Yeah, that's pretty much what it's about, enforcing that rule and principle. And I couldn't watch but 2 episodes of it, because I'm like, yeah, I already know, like that's how men in these countries are. up under this European influence, like the Book of Romans teaches, they're just lovers of themselves and trying
Yeah.
to, get all their pleasures and desires in this lifetime, and that's all it is, and subject women and children to whatever they want just so they could stay the head. So
Hmm.
yeah, I like how you were saying earlier about the democracy, because the way you explain it, it's like democracy is a Trojan horse for capitalism.
Absolutely.
And so,
Absolutely.
the politics and all that is just the veil that they pull over our eyes, And
Hmm.
I already know how the cat's paw and how they try to make themselves look like they're the light bearers. They want to
Hmm.
always be seen in a positive light.
Hmm.
So they use us to do all their dirty work, which is one of the things I was teaching about the P. Diddy situation. All they
Oh.
did was they get people like him to do their dirty work. That's
Hmm.
why they don't go after people like what's the one they're talking about, Hugh Hefner, because
Mm.
that's normal for them. That's part of their whole culture is to do stuff like that.
Right.
It's not normal for us. That's why we go after people like R. Kelly, P. Diddy, and all the people that get involved in that type of stuff, because that's shocking and disturbing for us, but it's normal for them.
Yeah. I'm kind of surprised at myself, but I'm disappointed that he was involved in that kind of perversion.
Yeah,
It's like how low we have sunk. Um, yeah, there's a case here, um, in terms of low, the standards to which we've sunk, of two young brothers. Actually, both of them going to a special school, and one reportedly raped the other. And the next day, the victim um, got his father's gun, which the father wasn't supposed to have because he had been felonized. And the kid took the gun to school and shot and killed the kid who raped him. And there's a big split in the community around how do you deal with that, right? Um, where the deceased child's mother is or was strung out on crack. He had been taken out of his parents' custody and was living with his grandparents because his parents were disabled as a result of the drugs infused in our community and the pain and the violence that we use to self-medicate. The other child, the child who was the shooter, he wasn't in a whole lot better situation, but he was at least at home with his father, who was trying to help him to work through. These kids were like um, 12 years old. And how the biological parents of the deceased child joined with the prosecutor, who is no friend of Black people, in calling for this trial, this 12-year-old, to be prosecuted as an adult, and that he'd be sentenced to life without possibility of parole. Now, everybody agrees that your brain does not stop developing until you're 26 years old. That's 14 years from when this child would be considered an adult. And I went to various ministers here because I learned that at least the grandmother of the deceased child was considered herself a Christian and a churchgoer. To say to them, we need to think about this differently.
Yeah.
That even if they took this second kid and locked him up for the rest of his life, it's not going to bring the first kid back. And whatever guilt that the biological parents are feeling, whatever pain and rage, revenge is not justice. In fact, I bought several copies of a book about a father, I think it was Pakistani father, whose son was killed by a young Black man. And he became involved in the anti-death penalty movement. And he ultimately met the young man. And while he wasn't so generous as to urge that he be released from prison, they reconciled, and now they have a project where they go and talk to young people in schools about violence, the spectrum of violence. See, we only think about violence as being when somebody gets beat up, or we think of it as they got shot, material terms, but the range of violence, the denial of people access to healthy food, clean water, clean air, clothing, shelter, education, access to technology and leisure. That's the real violence. That's the crippling violence that corrupts and cripples humanity. That of which the rape and the ultimate murder of one child by another is but a symptom.
Well, they know this. I studied, I was certified by the San Diego Sheriff's and neighborhood house to go inside of jails and prisons to talk about cognitive therapy behavior. So they know this because everything you mentioned are what they call the root causes of violence and why people go back to prison. So everything you just said, lack of fuel, lack of shelter, lack of resources, lack of a family structure. They have like 7 different things that they mention that leads people into like violence or going back to prison. So the science is out there, and cognitive behavioral therapy is like something new that they came up with after, realizing that what they were doing wasn't working. All the psychological therapy treatments that they were using wasn't working. So they had to identify root causes. And what we were working on something called the biology of violence, what causes a person. So, you're exactly right. The only thing is they know. So for like them to be trying to demonize, either one of these boys isn't right. They have like they say, cognitive behavioral therapy, but the kid who went back and shot the kid, it's like he had his father in his life who was trying to do positive things in his life. So he most definitely shouldn't be demonized. He should be given a hand up, not be trying to held down.
Right.
He should be one of the ones to go around speaking about what caused him to do this, which, Unfortunately, he was raped. So if people don't see the causes of what happened behind that, they should be prosecuted. They need help.
Well, and the school district should be sued and should be taken under some kind of supervision, because I'm sure that there was bullying that led up to the rape. Rape didn't just happen, you know. And my understanding is that there were complaints about the bullying that the school didn't do anything about.
And it depends, like, where it was at. Was it at a school? You know,
Yeah, it was
do
in the
we know if
boys.
it was at a school? So if it was at a school where he got raped, most definitely the school should be held accountable. You
Yeah.
know, there should be from the top down, all of them should go to jail
Mhm.
because they refused to step in when they saw this happening. And but that's what I noticed in this country. I've been talking about the like Democratic Party for a while and how they just seem to like not care anything about accountability. And that's a huge problem in this country that people are starting to see right now. We need accountability. So they've been speaking on it, but we need to see it.
Mhm. Well, the thing of it is that this one of the things that is so intense about the moment is about the levels and aspects of hypocrisy in this society. Um,
You like to speak on things, but you don't like to do anything about the things that you're speaking on.
yeah,
Like they say, hypocrisy is not practicing what you preach.
right, exactly, exactly.
But like,
Yeah.
why are you going to even say these things if you're not going to do them? You're just a hypocrite. You're making yourself out to be a hypocrite just by saying things and not following through.
Well, they made all these rules for other people, not for them, for themselves, you know. Um, I look at here in this country, talk about democracy, voting. You know, we fought throughout from the 60s, we fought the one person, one vote battle. We, of course, at that time didn't really understand, or we didn't, our analysis was faulty in that it's not a question, it's less a question of one person, one vote, although that should be applied, but that it's not the people who elect the president, but it's the Electoral College that elects the president. And the Electoral College was put into position as a barrier to genuine people representation. In fact, it was put into position to protect the enslavement of African people by ensuring power uh, to the enslavers. Um, and that process continues to this day. That is that the the enslavers could count us as 3/5 of a person in order to avoid their being in a minority voting position, in a minority power position. And that practice goes on today, where prisons are put into rural areas, underpopulated areas, and then the persons who are held in captivity in those concentration camps, which is what they are, um, as if they were voluntary residents. So you have that process of counting Black people for in ways beneficial to white power continues, that began in slavery, continuing to this day in order to ensure that the power and the resources are distributed in a way favorable to whites.
I'm glad I studied law because, and I had a lot of run-ins with the law to understand why they say ignorance is no excuse for the law. Because when you say things like the Electoral College and when I studied about how Hitler uh, got people, because Hitler was a Jew, and when World War II started with Hitler, those were Jews going against Jews. So they were like, how did he do that? He had to lie to his own people to get them to go against his people. So when we think about the Electoral College, it ain't just black people that they're lying to. They're lying to everybody in America. So with the Electoral College, it's like everybody is 3/5 of a man if you don't know what the Electoral College is, which is why they have gerrymandering.
Right.
And so with gerrymandering, it's for like the rich and upper class white people to be away from the poor classes of people so that they can control the resources and control the politics and things that are going on in this country. And
Absolutely.
one of the things that I also learned that people don't know is like when I was in prison in California, they was allowing us, I didn't do it because I didn't think it was legal, but they would allow inmates to file taxes and get tax returns. So, you're filing taxes and getting tax returns, you're also eligible to vote. So while they're in prison, they should have been eligible to vote while they were in prison.
Well, in Vermont, um, and I think it's Maine as well, you can vote. You can vote from prison.
Yeah, see?
Because they're white, the whiter the states are, then the more lenient maybe it's New Hampshire, the more lenient the voting laws are. And that's why I said earlier that the young brother who's is being prosecuted as an adult, his father had been felonized because a part of, in addition to gerrymandering, is all these other mechanisms that are used to prevent us from being able to participate in the electoral process. So spitting on the ground is a felony because number one, you can't register and vote, and number two, you cannot arm yourself, which means that you cannot defend yourself. You cannot defend yourself politically, and you cannot defend yourself materially. So that means that the average person of color, generally black person, black male specifically, is not considered a threat unless, of course, you are on the street and you happen to have to deal with a cop. Then the fact that you're a black and a male means that you are by definition a threat. But all of those things go into play for the express purpose of disarming and making us uncommonly vulnerable to white domination.
Well, not just that. When you put it like that, when they take away like your gun rights, your voting rights, and then they got it to where um, well, they got it. Have you been convicted of a felony on job applications? That's like saying you're not even a citizen.
Right.
So it's like
Right.
once you become a felon, it's like you're not a citizen anymore. See, in California, they have what they call ban the box, which is they wanted you to, and they passed where they can't ask you, are you a felon anymore? And
They
then you have
can't.
to check this your box. That should be a nationwide thing, and not just that. they could take it even farther. I think now felons could vote, like I say in California, they could vote. So that should be a nationwide thing. And what I was gonna say earlier when you were talking about the young boy that killed his rapist, that's what pisses me off about, excuse me, but that what makes me upset about politicians, our black politicians, because they're so focused on voting instead of focus on the real issues that's plaguing the community. You tell them something like this, you be like, they don't want to hear nothing about stuff like this. They want you to vote, 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 vote. And I work with a lot of these black Democrats. I've been traveling the country going. I went to Washington D.C., Oklahoma. We had a conference even in San Diego. I'm in Memphis now, and at least in Memphis, they're focusing on the violence that's going on in the community because it's now a nationwide thing, but it should never have to come to that. They're focused on it because businesses are running out, and they don't have any money from the revenues that they receive from all these businesses, and a lot of blight around here. It's crazy out here. The youth are the ones that's causing the most violence, and the youth are the ones who they see a rise in AIDS out here. It's all because of a failed leadership. But in Memphis, it's always black Democrats that's being elected. So our leaders are directly responsible for all the problems that are going on in this community, and democracy has never helped. We have to be more informed, like you say, and that's what I was telling our brothers in Africa. Because they don't care who they elect. They just elect whoever, and I'm like, no, you got to know who you elect. You got to elect people who have your interests in place, because that would turn you off to democracy when you just an uninformed voter. You just like voting with your eyes closed. You voted for people who don't even have your own interests in play, and then you wonder why the leader's not doing anything for you because they already got your vote. They know that you're gonna vote for them no matter what. And that's what we're trying to tell the black people over here. Like, just voting for Kamala just because she's black, that's the only reason like, come on, man. You're making yourself, the whole black community, out to be a laughing stock, which we already is on the global stage, because we
Not
keep
only
voting for
that,
these
I mean, we
people who are
already
not doing anything
we
for us.
we've seen that movie before. It's called Barack Obama.
Yeah.
So we have to become, first of all, we have to have an agenda. We don't have an agenda that we can hold politicians to. We don't have one of the campaigns that's going on now that is getting little or no attention, and that's the demand for reparations. There's a campaign that's called Earn the Black Vote, that the Democrats cannot win unless there is an overwhelming Black voter participation. So you couldn't get the word reparations mentioned at the Democratic convention, and you can't get Sharpton or any of the other misleaders, as Glenn Ford, the founder of the Black Agenda Report, used to call them, to even suggest that Joe Biden, by executive order, established a commission to just study reparations. So I agree with you. You're absolutely correct in terms of being mindful and selective about who we claim to represent us. So therefore, the power is in our own hands. Those of us who recognize the points that we're making, we're discussing, we have a duty to raise the consciousness of those around us. We have a tendency to think we've got to have the crowd, but we don't need the crowd. We just need a small group of committed folk who are willing to take the action necessary to build a movement to make a change. You know that the ban the box, and that was the point I was going to make about here Trump has been convicted of 34 felonies. But they rationalizing and they say, oh, well, that was political, so therefore his being a felon doesn't count. Now, in the state of Florida, he can't even vote for himself, but they're going to elect him president, right? The expose that is going on at this point. The Christians, it used to be you couldn't be a divorcee, you couldn't be a philanderer, but now all these Christian evangelicals are coalescing around him that God speaks through an imperfect vessel, so they say. You know, all these myths that they have sold to the masses of the people are now being exposed as nothing more than myths and gimmicks to divert people's attention from the reality. I don't know that I don't know that Trump and I don't expect Kamala to do anything. In fact, she said on the breakfast show that she was not going to commit herself to do anything just for Black people. While at one point she had talked favorably about reparations. So, you know, it's like we'll be the cat's paw as long as we keep going for the okie doke, as long as our bruised egos, our sense of inferiority, our desire to be aligned with the appearance of power, unless and until we are prepared to establish an agenda and to hold folk accountable to it. You know, even the poor whites, it doesn't make any sense. I was talking to this white woman this week, and she was talking about how she didn't trust Kamala to know how to run a government. I said, well, I don't understand why you would trust a 6-time bankrupt to run a government. It looks to me like 6 on one hand, half done on the other. She said, well, you know, at least he'll know to get people around him who know how to run a government. I said, right. He got 6 times he chose the wrong people to run his business, and 2 that stuck with him the longest wound up in prison. So what kind of record is that? Is that a good recommendation? Would you really hire them to be in charge of your affairs?
Well, he's a career scammer. That's all the bankrupts, everything that they created was for the rich to pull scams on poor people, like bankruptcy. You know, that's how you just get out of paying your employers, and that's it, and that's all. You know, so that's why he went bankrupt, like, you know, all in different times, so he could just walk away with his millions, and that's how he became a billionaire. Because he didn't start out as a billionaire. He created, like they say, he's a self-made billionaire because he scammed his way into billions of dollars by declaring bankruptcy and not having to pay people. So that's all that
Not to
is.
mention his father having given him $4 million seed money to start off with.
Yeah, yeah. You know, and after that, all he had to do, well, he's not an idiot. He's real smart because he was able to scam people to become a billionaire. He knew he's a numbers guy. He knew that if he declared bankruptcy, he wouldn't have to pay his workers, and so putting all these scams like that. He didn't have to pay for his buildings to be built. He didn't have to pay for all the hotel workers and stuff that he had working for him all these different years and stuff like that. Yeah, I mean, to pull cons like that, you have to be, a lot of these psychopaths, they're real intelligent.
Oh yeah.
The best actors, the best psychopaths are the best actors. So,
Tell me something. Why do you think that the recent union, I think it was the UAW,
in
one of the,
California,
huh?
the one that endorsing Kamala Harris?
No, it was the one that didn't endorse, that's not endorsing either one of them. I think it's the UAW.
Yeah, it was the
Whichever one.
UAW, but the one in California broke away from the national chapter and endorsed Kamala Harris.
Okay, but the national is not endorsing whichever one of these unions it is. And 58, the internal poll was 58% favors Trump and 31% favors Harris. How could any working class person support Trump? I mean, it doesn't make sense to me. I mean, I have a niece who is running for Congress on the Republican Party ticket in Pennsylvania, and I cannot, for the life of me, I cannot begin to understand how a young Black woman, except for raw, opportunistic ambition, could associate herself with the Republican Party generally and Donald Trump specifically.
Well, the Republican, when you think about Republican and Democrat, it's like the nonprofit sector versus the business sector. So the Democrats are the ones who give out the grants, and they run nonprofit agencies. The Republicans are the business owners, and this goes way back to this, before all this, when it first started taking place during the Reconstruction. Remember, the people who were able to vote, they owned the farms, they had to own land, they had to be business people, and the slave owners were the Democrats, So still today, it's like the business owners are the Republicans, and then the nonprofit sector, those are the Democrats. And so you have a lot of workers, like that's why like a lot of the police, the firemen, a lot of people like that, they always support the Republican Party. And then you got NAACP, the Black churches, all these nonprofit people they support the Democratic Party because they need those government funds. So that's all it is, like the nonprofit sector. And I even tell people myself, if you go to work and you're paying taxes, you're not a Democrat, you're a Republican. That's all it, plain and simple. Because you're going to work, your boss, he's a Republican. He's not a Democrat, And that's all it is. It's the nonprofit sector versus the business sector. And that's why if you notice, like the Democrats are always trying to get in the Republican pockets, because they're the corporate owners and stuff, the corporations. And then you got Trump telling them you can't charge them because he's a business owner. He's like, don't make them pay taxes,
Right.
but the Democrats want them to pay taxes because that's how they get their money for their nonprofit organizations and stuff like that. And they make the corporations, they don't make them, but they have it now to where what they call a social responsibility, where all the different corporations, they have to give grants now. So they give a lot of money to the community, to the nonprofit organizations and stuff. And the Democrats know that. They know the scams that they're pulling, the wool over. All they could do is pull the wool over people's eyes. That's by charging they're going after the Republicans the way they did. That's why the Democrats became millionaires, because remember, they wasn't millionaires before until Hillary Clinton came. She's a lawyer. She knew how to do, away with all the different laws, underhanded stuff, so that they became millionaires up under Hillary Clinton's tenure. So that's what I learned about her. She was like one of the smartest Democrats ever. Really one of the smartest politicians ever, with her law background. So that's all it is like the nonprofit sector versus the business sector. But a lot of these Republicans, they're into like land grabbers. They like to be in control. That's why they like being in control of the resources, but they all in bed together. One thing I could say about what Obama did do, when black people say that Obama didn't do anything for black people, a lot of that's coming from the black leadership, like Al Sharpton and a lot of the black celebrities and stuff that are Democrats. And remember, Obama, he had to work across the aisle a lot and go and work with the Republicans to get a lot of his stuff passed. So what he did, Obama came up with My Brother's Keeper. And a lot of people don't know that up under My Brother's Keeper, corporations were paying black people or giving to people of color $200 million each. All the different corporations. And that's why we have the Community Benefit Agreement, the Community Reinvestment Act. All that came because of Barack Obama. And so a lot of these black people, they were like, oh, well, he didn't do nothing. You got to be a corporation to get this money. You have to be like, well, why don't you create a corporation? You have a corporation with your radio station. Well, you're able to get funding and everything like that from what Barack Obama did, and the community radio stations that are all behind Barack Obama. So Barack Obama, he really did do a lot of things for black people. And another thing, I work with Brother Herschel Daniels, who he was at Barack Obama's inauguration, and they had an agreement. One thing we got to realize, as you know, as black people, we're not really a people. So they call us black, but we don't. That's one of the things with reparations that I learned. California has a reparations bill, and I was talking about reparations way before they came with their reparations bill. And a lawyer, an international lawyer, told me they need an anthropologist on their team. And I don't think the people that's doing the reparations, they have an anthropologist to see who's really black. Who really comes from the slave trade and stuff like that. So what Barack Obama did with our brother Herschel Daniels, he said that if we could get black people to come together, I think it was like about $6 trillion called quantitative easing funds. Because all these different presidents, they got like funds that they get every year, and before they leave the office, they could decide what to do with these funds. So we were trying to get black people to come together so that we could get like $6 trillion that Barack Obama promised that if we could gather all our people together, and we were trying to create like I think 300 congressional districts with our people, so that our people could be in control of the funds in all the different districts. And man, the thing is, when they say Barack Obama didn't do nothing for black people, they wanted direct payments, because our people don't want to come together and work together. And you can't operate and have a black society like that. Our people want to be just like they were when the Civil Rights Act. Before the Civil Rights, we had Black Wall Street, we had black business, we had black enterprise. Our people wanted to be integrated into this white supremacy system. And that's the problem still today. Our people do not want to come together to create a black society, to create black enterprises together. And that's everywhere I go. When I travel the country working with the black leaders, they hate each other. The black leaders don't even want to work together. And these are mayors. And one of the things is, what I learned is these different fraternities and sororities, they hate each other. So all these black people that's part of these different fraternities, they do not want to work together. And that creates all the problems that we see in the Black community because our leaders do not want to work together.
Well, I'm one of those people who say that, as I said a moment ago, voting for Kamala is the same as voting for Barack Obama. Neither one of them support reparations. That's number one. Number two is that I agree with the person who said that an anthropologist needs to be on the team. There are geneticists who are a part of the reparations community. And I suspect there are anthropologists as well, but not as well known as others. The question of whether or not we will or will not work together, I think is misleading. The allegation, I think, is misleading because you let a white cop kill a Black male, and there is immediate cohesion. The question is, what is it that we will come together on? And what is it that happens when we start talking about the collection and distribution of benefits? And it in my opinion, is a problem of limited trust. That trust or lack of it comes out of our experiences, our divide and conquer experiences, and the big I, little u system that we have been encouraged to keep in place. That those who are closest, as the young people say, proximate to power, the managerial class, like the Oprahs and
The gatekeepers, they feel like they should be
exactly,
gatekeepers. And
right,
that's the problem. They feel like they are entitled to be gatekeepers.
right. And they're paid to be gatekeepers. So that's a part of the problem, winds up being that the leadership has been bought off, and that's across the board. For me, my generation, the leadership buyout was the so-called poverty program, where you had the well-trained, the skilled, those who should have been providing leadership and development and empowerment to the community were given their tickets out of the community by increased government wages. So it left the community bereft of the kind of leadership that was necessary to nurture the community and to realize, so that the community realized its fuller potential. Now, let me tell you my thing about Obama. See, I've been watching Obama since he was a state senator. I used to work with Amnesty International for the abolition of the death penalty. And Illinois had one of the most corrupted criminal punishment systems in the country. It had one of the largest death rows, and the largest percentage of whom came out of Chicago under the Police Commander Burge's district, where to keep his numbers low, keep his case solved record good, forced young Black men to confess to crimes that they had not committed. So you had all these young Black men on death row in Illinois for crimes that they had not committed, having been tortured and forced to make these confessions. Are you familiar with the Burge cases?
I think so. Wasn't there a governor they end up overturning all that?
So what happened was the governor, Ryan, I think his first name was George, but his last name was definitely Ryan. Once it became evident that all these people were wrongfully convicted and on death row, they weren't just wrongfully convicted and sentenced to life in prison. They were wrongfully convicted and put on death row. They were going to kill them all. Um, did created a task force, a joint legislative task force. One, the state senator was Barack Obama, who had pushed a Black woman out of office with the help of Zionists who used technicalities to have her removed from the ballot. And he named someone from the state equivalent of the House of Representatives. I don't remember whether they call them the Assembly or what. But anyway, they put together this task force, and Barack Obama was a co-chair of it. And instead of abolishing the death penalty, making the recommendation that the death penalty in Illinois be abolished, he came up with this scheme of like 81 or some phenomenal number of conditions that would have to be satisfied before the death penalty could be imposed, on the theory, knowing that he was going to run for further office, on the theory that the death penalty would not be abolished, but that it would be so difficult to satisfy the checklist that nobody would be sent to, would be killed, be murdered by the state of Illinois. Well, that was a chicken shit, dishonest way and opportunistic, because he then could never be accused of having been like the caucus opposed to the death penalty, because it's not, and especially at that point in time, considered politically appropriate. Then when he went into the Senate, after he'd come out of the state Senate, then to run for president, that he took other similar kinds of actions which made him acceptable to whites, and knowing that we're going to be so happy to see the possibility of having the first Black president, that whatever he did, we were going to support him. So what did he do? He said, first of all, that he was going to run on public funds. The first thing he did was to become run a race on private funds, where he had the first billion-dollar presidential campaign, thus pushing electoral office even further out of the reach of the average person, and certainly of third-party candidates. Now in Chicago, I mean, there are other points that can be raised. You know, he gets credit for the number of people who benefited from the powder cocaine, crack cocaine convictions, and the changing of the proportions, which is bullshit, because as we all know, cocaine is cocaine, whether it's rock or powder. And And now he is like Clinton did in Harlem, gentrifying the southern side of Chicago to create his library, which is going to displace even more Black people and leave them houseless or living outside of the city of Chicago. So no, whatever, as far as my brother's keeper is concerned, my response to that, and what about your sister? Who are these young men supposed to marry if nothing is being done on behalf of Black girls? The truth of the matter is that Black girls, because they are not deemed a threat, do not get the necessary attention and supports that are necessary for them to realize their full potential. The rate of and the degree of punishment that Black girls get in school, and the rate of incarceration of Black women, which has a significantly greater impact on the community, is greater actually than that of Black males. While the raw numbers are higher for males, the impact for females is greater.
Yeah, of course, they're mothers.
That's right, and we are a matriarchal community. But there's the African American Forum at Columbia has a program called Push Out, and it focuses on girls. It's something that we need to look at more. As Malcolm said, a nation can rise no higher than its women. Yeah.
So that's what we're working on. We have a whole movement that me and my friends and with the African farmers, we're connecting with the African and the American farmers together, and we're all working, putting women, we're holding women and supporting women. So that's what got me connected with the African American farmers and the African farmers, because people I've been working with, we always said, we're here to support women. Whatever women want to do, we need women leaders. We want to see women empowered. And so what I was telling people is that you give a man money, a man's going to go to a club, he's going to trick it off, he's going to do whatever. But if you give a woman money, she ain't got no choice but to bring that money home.
Yeah.
Period. No matter how much money, whatever you give her something, she's gonna bring it home. She can't go nowhere. She's gonna bring it back home. And that's not the case with men. So we need to put women in charge. It don't matter what position they're in. We need to put women in charge. And with me having the support with the Africans, this brother from Samoa, he's a chief of Samoa. He contacted me. I was a promoter in San Diego. So we used our resources and connections to get the first ever woman elected as the prime minister of Samoa.
Wow.
Yeah. And so the ruling party was ruling for like 40 years. It was a family ruling for like 40 years, and they didn't even want to leave after she got elected. And so he said they were trying to rig the numbers and stuff so that she don't go into office. But so I forgot all about it. And then about a month later, he called me and he said there was an African DJ that played a song dedicated to her, and that's what made them leave. Because I had wrote, he told me, can you tell your friends in Africa and everybody, all the leaders to write letters over there saying that they need to leave and they need to honor the election because the people had elected her. And so I, reached out to my friends. They wrote letters. One of the ladies that was on this show, she's from South Africa. She's a royalty also. But when I had her on the show, I learned that she was part of that Steve Biko movement. Steve Biko was empowering. Remember the women that was in the school? She said she was in the school and how they used to do her in the school. And I'm like, man, you sound like one of the ladies that was in that Steve Biko movie I saw, and I sent her the clip, and she was like, yes, yes. I'm like, wow, so, but I already knew that she was part of the one of the freedom fighters that fought for apartheid over there in Africa, So I didn't know that she was one of those ladies that I was watching in those, being portrayed in that movie. Right. So that was great to learn that. So she also wants to be the president of South Africa. So when I first met her, she was trying to get me to help with her campaign to be the president of South Africa. So this is like some of the things that I've been working on, is mainly making sure that we have women in power. But like a lot of us know, Kamala is not the woman that we should have in power. I would rather have the sister that I know who did is helping with the Reparations Act in California, Dr. Shirley Weber. Dr. Shirley Weber, she's the one who Ice Cube also went to with his Black Folks Plan, and she was supporting that. But he even said the Democrats didn't even want to look at his Black Folks Plan. But he said, at least Donald Trump had a meeting with me. He said the Democrats that straight up shot me down. But we have I know Sister Dr. Shirley Weber through Queen Mother Harmon, who I met right before I left San Diego. And Queen Mother Harmon, she also was the mentor to not just Dr. Shirley Weber, but she's also the head of the Democratic Party in California. And she's the mentor of Sister Barbara Lee. You probably know Barbara Lee too as well. So all these people are connected over there, so I was honored and blessed to work with them and be close with them, and Shirley Weber, she said she'll be with anybody. She wants Black people to have their own, She said just like, she wants messages, everybody should have their own everything. So I was like, man, she's the one that took Kamala Harris' seat when Kamala I was trying to get her to take Dianne Feinstein's seat, but she said, that's a seat that you have to be elected for, and there was only like a couple of years left, but she's comfortable being the Secretary of State because that's like something that, you don't have to run for that.
Right.
Yeah, so she said she's going to stay right there. Like, well, that's great, because she's pushing for the reparations bill, and I, from last I heard, Gavin Newsom actually passed the reparation bill. He keeps pushing that reparation bill too, and I know that's why he's getting a lot of flack with the media because they don't want Black people to have what belongs to us. So they're always going to keep trying to show him in a negative light. Especially I see a lot of white people. They got land, they got their millions and mansions and stuff. They don't like him. Talking about he's doing it, but from what I see, like, when they allow people to go, they said you could I think the snatch and grab that they're doing over there, like the people is going over there grabbing stuff. They said you could like snatch and grab up to like $5,000 worth of stuff before it becomes a felony and all this. That to me, that's like kind of get back at the oppressive corporations that have been oppressing our people. They know that you're oppressing our people, and then how they raising prices over there in California and everything's going up. They know the poor people can't survive. So they don't want to be punishing people for acting out of desperation for the situation that you guys are creating. That's the way I see it, They're not trying to punish our people for struggling and having to do what they do out of these desperate conditions that you guys created. Like you say, when Barack Obama, I think he said he built a library. It don't matter if it's just a library, it's still going to raise rent up in the area. So our people don't know whenever they build something like, a lot of people know that once you put a Walmart anywhere, it's going to raise the rent up in the area. So LA, they protested against the Walmart. I think it was Inglewood protested against the Walmart coming to their neighborhood because they know it was going to raise the rent up, and it was all a plot just to get the Black people out of the area. All they have to do is put a Walmart there, or put another one at Starbucks. How they got everybody, they got people sparking the Starbucks, but people don't know once you get a Starbucks in your neighborhood, that's going to shoot your rent up.
That's a big sign right there. Starbucks is definitely a danger sign. Yeah,
Our people don't know stuff like this because, you know, the media and the TV and stuff, that's what really controls our people's mind. You know, they
yeah,
know that our people want what they see on TV. So they put all these Starbucks commercials, all these Walmart, you know, all these different commercials on TV. And we start contributing to our own demise.
right. That's right. So, all right. Well, you got a lot here to edit.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been a great one. You know, we got a lot of information we could put out and share with our people. And I always appreciate our guest time, especially you know, having people on like you who, you know, got so much knowledge to share. You know, and it's always a lesson for me every time I have someone great on like yourself. I get a history lesson, you know, and just learn more and more and more. So I always appreciate you guys' time. It's really a blessing.
It's my pleasure. And you have to send me the link for it once you get it up.
Oh, no problem, no problem. It's
Okay.
gonna be up next Sunday, but before then, I'll make sure that I send you a copy of it so that you can go over before everybody else see it.
Okay. Wonderful. All right.
Hopefully, what I said, I'm gonna be sending out a email about the date when I'm gonna invite all you leaders back on,
Mm,
so that we can start working on a plan moving forward. Because we got some big things going on from here to Africa and even in Samoa to help build our communities, because we're working with people that are not just talking. They got a lot of projects going on, you know, and we all need to
yeah.
work together to make sure that, you know, our people is basically eating right, you know, and getting the resources and
Yes.
things that they need.
Yes. Yes. That's critical.
Yeah,
That's critical. That's exciting.
yeah, thank you,
That's
appreciate it.
exciting. Yeah.
Okay,
Okay. I gotta
I hope.
go.
Okay, I'll talk to you soon. God bless.
You too.
Thank you for tuning in, everyone. Hope to see you next time. Hope you enjoyed the show. Peace and blessings. We're out.